There's no easy way to hear. And all the memories you love to bring. With all the things that you hate to scream. So tell me, hollow on the inside, there's no trying to hide from this monster inside me. So if you try to criticize me, like the world defines me, it is what I have become.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Browns Beat Podcast. My name is Derek Frisbee, and I'm here with my guy, Tristan. At least I think you are. Who are you? I'm just kidding. That was a joke. For those of you who will not understand, that was an inside joke between me and Tristan. So,
Yeah. Oh, man, Derek. Wow. What a week, man. What a week. Finally a good Browns dub. But
yeah.
kind of lead us off, Derek.
Yeah, it's been kind of another wild week if you're a fan of this football team. So for those of you who click on this podcast and you say, well, I wonder what they're talking about. Today we're going to be talking about the Browns' victory over the Dolphins. I cannot believe I'm saying the Browns' victory. Those words do not feel real. We're going to talk about a rumor that has been spreading that I did some backwork connection on, so I have some information on that. We're going to talk about the Tyson Campbell trade finally, as well as if Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders is not the quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. I have a guy. It's early, but I have a guy. And before we dive into our first topic, I just want to say, for those of you who aren't draft people and you like the entertainment, you like watching this stuff for the entertainment value, when we get to that portion of the podcast, it will be entertaining. Because let me tell you, me and Tristan, after the podcast was over last week, we had quite the discussion. I believe I was in tears. I was laughing so hard. So
Yeah,
it will be interesting.
Yes, this is one of the only podcasts we will ever record where you will be rewarded if you stick around to the very end. It's trust me, it is. Yeah. This is the climax is going to be at the very end. It is going to be a very spirited debate, or at least it has the potential to be one. For full transparency, his guy, I do not know. He gave me a short list of names. I gave him my opinions on those names, and then that's where we kind of left it. So I still do not know. You will see my raw reaction to that later. But let's get into our first topics. I can't wait to get to that point, by the way.
Yeah.
So this will be the least amount that I talk because I'm so excited to get to that topic.
Yeah, so let's kick things off here tonight, Tristan. So again, words I cannot believe are about to come out of my mouth. The Cleveland Browns won this past Sunday, beating the Miami Dolphins 31-6. Tristan, this was such a weird game. I don't know how you feel, but for me, going into this game, there was the obvious, right? These are the two most dumpster fire shithole teams right now in the NFL. Loser of this game.
The New York Jets have a word in this as well.
Okay.
The New York Jets certainly do. Come on now.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But it is undeniable that the Jets, the Dolphins, the Browns, these teams are just in absolute turmoil right now. And Tristan, listen, hey, hands up, guilty as charged. I thought that the Browns, masters of dysfunction, were going to out-dysfunction the Miami Dolphins in this game. So much so that myself and my roommates, we made a couple different parlays, just like 50 cents, pick every game, right? Had we picked the Cleveland Browns, Tristan, it's always your own team, right? It's always your own team that screws you. If we would have picked the Cleveland Browns, there would have been a point in the day on Sunday, Tristan, where our cash out probably would have been in the thousands. Yeah, we had picked basically every game for the most part correct.
Wow. all.
Up until the end. So that's why I say cash out. I'm not saying we would have won, but if we would have been smart enough to cash out, we would have won a large amount of money. So that goes to show you, I thought the Browns were so bad that I was willing to put money on them to lose this game, trusting the Browns win the game. Like I said earlier, very interesting. I think a lot of people kind of leave this game a lot of negativity for obvious reasons. We're Browns fans. It's what we do. But Tristan, when the game was over, when the clock hit 0 and the Browns scored 31 points offensively and held the Miami Dolphins team to 6 points, what was your reaction?
Relief. I mean, I can't say this enough. It was so nice having a game where towards the end I didn't have to fear the perpetual fears of we're going to screw this up somehow. This is too close for comfort. Like we haven't been the better team. We've played terrible. Like all that other stuff kind of comes up, and just having a nice, relaxing, comfortable victory in which we did see some stuff that was really good that we did like, albeit against the Dolphins team that looks like they are dead right now. Certainly, I do not know how Mike McDaniel has kept his job. Beyond me. But anyways, it was just a huge, overwhelming sense of relief. Just being able to watch my team win a football game in a very stress-free manner. I could be wrong, Derek, but the last time I felt that relaxed during a game, it was actually when the Browns played Houston, Joe Flacco, when he was here for the first time, and Amari Cooper had like one of the greatest days wide receivers ever had, and just absolutely torched that Texans defense. That was kind of the last time where I was just like, okay, like third quarter, fourth quarter, it was just relaxing watching the game, which is super uncommon as a Browns fan. But Derek, kind of like same question back to you. What were your thoughts on this game? How did you feel watching this game?
I felt confused because I hate to say it, but like it just is what it is. I'm used to the same thing every single week. And I know I try to be optimistic. You know I can be very negative, so that might be funny to some people. But I try to be optimistic, and it's just like there's not a whole lot right now for me that I can look at and say, hey, I'm very excited about that. Or that's something I think is legit, like moving forward. There's just not a lot. So it was weird. It was very weird when the clock hit 0 on Sunday. I do think as far as the Kevin conversation, that's been the big hot button topic. I think what we learned is that Kevin, the question of if he's a good coach or not might be fair. That might be fair to say. But at least we know that he's not the worst in the NFL. Like, that Mike McDaniel performance on Sunday, he just looked absolutely defeated. Like, he looked like a man that was fired on the sideline during the game. So that was bad. So, yeah. As far as the game itself, it was a weather game. We knew it was going to be sloppy. It turned out to be not as bad as initially thought. But Dylan Gabriel on the day went 13 of 18, 116 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Very vanilla through the air offensively. Tristan, that's something we've been bitching about a lot this year. I'm not going to bitch about it a whole lot today just because of the fact that it was a bad weather game. I'm going to give them the pass on that. Quinshon Judkins is going to be the story of this game. 25 carries, 84 yards, 3 touchdowns on the day. Just the tweet was out there. The Browns are so lucky to go from Nick Chubb to Quinshon Judkins. Well, guess what? When you have to suffer as much as we do, you can at least give us one thing to be happy about. Okay? So I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear a peep. So yeah, offensively, Tristan, I thought it was okay. I mean, I wouldn't say it was good. I wouldn't say it was great. It was just okay. Whether if you want to say that limitations are because whatever reason, at the end of the day, through the air, it was just little to nothing, which is kind of what was required to win this game. And then on the ground, you went off. Because guess what? When you're able to run the football and your defense isn't forced to be on the field 24/7, this is what can happen offensively. And again, you score 31 points. You haven't been able to score over 17 all year for the most part. You score 31 points. Why? Because you were moving the chains. It was that simple. You were moving the chains. So offensively, that's all I got. Before I go over to you, I'm going to just throw in defensively because I don't have a whole lot. Tua. I mean, that's it. I really don't know anymore because I like Tua. I liked him a lot coming out of college. I know he had the injury issues. I didn't like him over Herbert. That was dumb. I don't know why they did that. But I did like Tua. And I mean, it's to the point, Tristan. I don't want to judge him because of this game, but man, like, Miami might need to just fire sale that whole team. And I like Tua, but he has to go. I kind of get that feeling.
I mean, I agree with you, but at the same time, he not too long ago signed a pretty good extension, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. I think he's there for at least another year. And that's the type of QB purgatory you get into whenever you sign a quarterback to a big money deal. And we know that all too well. So if there's anybody that understands it, it's us. But like Jacksonville's got a similar thing with Trevor Lawrence. The start of the season was looking good. We'll see how it finishes. Personally, I'm not a believer. But yeah, I'm gonna start as well with the offense. I can't really take much from the passing game in this game. I saw that there were average wind gusts of like 25 to 30 miles an hour with like rain conditions, with some wind gusts being as high as 50 to 60 miles an hour.
That's football weather.
Yeah, right?
What are you talking about?
But like, so it's hard for me to be harsh on the pass game, especially because I can think of multiple times where in games like this, we've played exactly like this and won. I remember, I think it was Deshaun Watson, one of his first starts, like a couple years back. I want to say, was it against the Bengals? I can't remember who it was against, but it was a home game, terrible weather game. He didn't throw the ball really at all. And
New Orleans?
It might have been New Orleans. Yes, it might have been. Okay. I'm having a really hard time remembering, but it was a terrible weather game. He threw the ball like maybe 12 times. Like, it was not a lot. So for me, I'm with you. I kind of give a pass to the passing game, but I can't be critical of those who don't, because again, it's the pattern that's still going, and it's something that we are all eager to see improvement on. But yeah, I think that this isn't the game to underline and say this is the issue. I think if you're seeing a lot of people saying that this was the straw that broke the camel's back, I respectfully don't listen to them. This is not the game to say that. If you said that last game, I can understand. And then obviously weather conditions depending for this next game. But yeah, offensively, yeah, you mentioned it. The run game. That was the biggest positive for me, Derek, was that you were able to go back to your identity. What made you a great offense under Kevin Stefanski the first time around, which was the run game. And honestly, Derek, I don't understand why there's been such a huge deviation from it. Why do we feel the need to why did we feel the need to run away from the run game as much as we do for short passes? Like, I get it. There's going to be times where teams stack the box and you're really just not able to run the football. Dial up a deep shot, like I understand the frustrations that people have with Dylan Gabriel and not hitting deep passes, and they're very valid. Absolutely. There hasn't been drawn up plays for him to take a deep shot. That's the biggest reason why I don't subscribe to the argument that he can't hit those throws, is because he hasn't really had the opportunity to. But regardless, I know he's still missed stuff, whatever, but that's a whole nother topic. But yeah, in terms of the offense, Quinshon Judkins is an absolute stud. Going from Nick Chubb to him is absolutely a privilege, maybe one of the only privileges us Browns fans will ever have. Man, not to mention on social media this week, talking about how much he loves the Browns, how much he wants to stay in Cleveland his whole career, wants to be a career-long Brown and keep on playing for the city and fans. How can you not? How can you not love it?
I will say, I don't mean to demean a man's character, but I gotta say, old Quinshon did try to slide on my boy's girl, which I thought was kind of funny, because something did come out that he tried to do it to somebody else too. So I personally, hey, listen, I don't judge him. He's a hell of a running back. I'm happy to have him, but I did think that was hilarious. Because this is somebody that I talk to on the daily, and all of a sudden one day before the draft, he was like, bro, he's like, you'll never believe who just slid in so-and-so's DMs. And I was like, who? He was like, Quinshon Judkins. And I was like, what? So yeah, I probably should not have told that story.
I'm sitting here like, wow, that's a hell of a transition.
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't say there's necessarily a purpose to that story. It's one of those things that you ever get told something and it's just, I don't know, eating at you that you know about it and other people don't. You know what I mean? One of those type deals. It was just it was just so random and funny. And there's more details to it, but I'm not gonna get into it. But anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Quinshon Judkins. What a beast, man. Love the way that he runs the football. It is so reminiscent of Nick Chubb. I don't think that he'll ever get to a point where he surpasses Nick Chubb in terms of personal favorites. Nick Chubb is my all-time favorite Brown. He kind of is synonymous for when I started becoming a Browns fan. It was at the very beginning of the Hugh Jackson era. Terrible time to become a Browns fan. But, so being around for those times and then watching him kind of at the same time as me get into the game of football and really kind of grow throughout the game of football and watch his evolution, as well as just the person he was, it was such a privilege. And the fact that we've got a guy who probably won't ever reach that level for me personally, but the fact that we've got a guy who performance-wise could end up getting to a similar level, if not, I'm not going to say that, but, it's, again, I said it, I'm going to repeat myself, it is a privilege. The talent that he's showing, the talent that he's displaying right now is fantastic, and I think come the season's end, I don't know as though he'll win Offensive Rookie of the Year, but he at least deserves a nod, especially if some miracle happens and this team's able to have a miraculous turnaround. But that's all I've got for the offense. I'm going to be really quick on the defense here too. Just a good dominating display. Tua, not good.
Too good.
Tua turned the ball over. Yeah, he did not have a great day. Credit to the Browns defense, though. They made plays when they needed to. Guys showed up. I remember we were in recent weeks being critical of that Browns defensive line because they just were not getting consistent pressure, especially that Vikings game. That was very frustrating. The secondary played well. Tyson Campbell got a pick 6, so like it's what more can you say other than they did their job? And yeah. One player I will shout out, Grant Delpit.
Mm-hmm.
He is somebody who so often goes so far under the radar. I'm glad that he's getting his moment, especially these past few weeks, having this moment where he's been able to, get some praise from a lot of Browns fans online.
Yeah, I thought it was just, again, I've already said it, but I think it was a perfect example of what can happen with this defense if your offense is somewhat competent. I will say I don't want to overreact to this game. Like, as Browns fans, I don't want us to see this game and be like, oh, we're back. Like, we can contend for the playoffs. The AFC North is open. Yeah, that might be true, but it also is true that, like, hey, you're still not in a good spot, right? This team is still not in a good spot. So you can be happy about a win, absolutely. And hey, by the way, I was going to bring this up when we talk about Tyson Campbell, but what you want if you're a Browns fan is every single week until the end of the season, you want either when the Browns win, you want the Jags to lose, or when the Jags win. Not saying you want the Browns to lose, but you're not going to get as mad if the Browns lose. I'll just put it like that as far as the future goes, right? Because I'm a big believer in the future outlook, but I also subscribe to the theology that if you can win now, win now. Like, absolutely. But I will say defensively, given the weather, it's hard to really judge as far as the secondary goes, but the players that you really wanted to pop off popped off. Mason Graham had a hell of a game. Schwesinger had a hell of a game. Devin Bush, you already mentioned it, Delpit. There was plenty of guys that had a great game against the Dolphins. And again, it's the Dolphins, so I'm not going to overly judge. And I want to say this because, I don't want to be unfair. There's plenty of guys who had really, really, really good games that we're not going to talk about because, what's the point in talking about a win over the Dolphins? But there were some guys that did have some good games. I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, well said. I was just going to say, well said, and I think we can leave it there. So, Derek, it's time for you to break some news.
Yeah, so kind of an interesting podcast today for those of you who are still watching to this point. Usually me and Tristan kind of collab on this as far as like what we're talking about. Today, this was kind of like my list. One of the things that as I was preparing to get on tonight, a lot of rumors floating around with the Browns as far as like who we're going to trade. Could the Browns trade for people? Could the Browns move off of people? And obviously when you're a team that now has 2 wins, you're going to be looking to move off of guys given the situation the Browns are in. So Tristan, there was something that I was interested in talking about, but I didn't want my fandom to be the reason why I'm talking about it. I wouldn't say we're professional over here, but I try, right? We try sometimes. But with this, I was really intrigued. So I did some back work, and I talked to I don't want to say people within the know, but I'll say people who know stuff and people who know people. I talked to my guy. You know what I mean? And the things that I was hearing, I don't want to say that it is for sure a guarantee to happen. But what I can tell you tonight is I know for a fact, confirmed, that the Cleveland Browns are indeed interested in a trade for Garrett Wilson. Now, Tristan, this is where it gets interesting. I'm going to send it over to you first before I share my thoughts, but a little background for everybody at home. Garrett Wilson drafted a few years back, same year that Chris Olave and Jameson Williams, and it was the Buckeye wide receiver draft. Chris Olave. Garrett Wilson is 25 years old at this point. He is 6 foot, 183 pounds, according to ESPN. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the New York Jets, let me fill you in. They're terrible. They've had a terrible quarterback situation since he's been in the NFL with the Jets. I think that's fair to say. I feel like that would be universally agreed upon, hopefully. Every year Garrett Wilson has been in the NFL, Tristan, he has averaged over 1,000 yards receiving, and he has averaged minimum 3+ touchdowns or more. So far this season in 2025, he has caught 36 of the 56 balls thrown his way for 395 yards and 4 touchdowns. So, Tristan, with that being said, given the state of the Browns, given where we are at in this whole timeline of events, would you trade for Garrett Wilson? Couple questions here. Would you trade for Garrett Wilson? What would you trade for Garrett Wilson? And I was trying to think of the other one, but I'll leave it at that because I forgot. So go ahead.
Oh, you're all good. So part of the reason why I'm on my phone right now is I wanted to take a look at his contract situation, because that is a very important part of this process when we're talking trade. So with him, it looks as though he signed. Let's see. It looks as though he signed a deal. Let's see here. I apologize. I'm just getting around to this. So it was a $130 million deal. When was this signed? It looks like it expires 2031, but that's a void year. So, yeah. So I want to say that he just signed this past offseason, I believe, is what I'm reading. And I think
that
it
is
fully kicks in. I think, because, all right, I think I got it now. 2025, he's on his 4th year of his rookie deal. They already accepted the 5th year option, and then he's got his 4-year deal that kicks in after that with the void year. So that is all important information. Essentially, with this type of move, there's not a ton of cap flexibility on the Jets side of things. They don't really lose a lot of cap. According to overthecap.com, if they did a post-June 1st trade with him, so trading him today, they would get $1.25 million in cap savings for this season. Now, it's not a direct one-for-one, but if what's on here is correct, the following year they'd have a $7.3 million cap savings. So in totality, it's not much savings. And then when you get into the contract itself later on, it's actually not that bad moving forward. $2.75 million over the next 4 years is what they'll be on the hook for. So the contract itself, the majority of it will be paid by the team that trades for him. Why is that important? Because it's going to affect trade compensation. If this was a situation where they were going to dump a ridiculous amount of cap, your compensation would not nearly be as high. Now, that does affect my thoughts on trading for him. First and foremost, absolute stud. Garrett Wilson is exactly the type of player that this team needs, this team has been crying out for. I cannot stress this enough. Yes, if you can make this happen, yes, do it. With that being said, you have to go about this the right way. You cannot trade a king's ransom. Like the compensation for Odell that we traded for the Giants, you can't go near that. It's too big of a risk at this point. But if you're able to make it happen and you're able to, for me, the most I feel comfortable with giving right now, I'm not even sure if I feel comfortable giving up like the Jacksonville first round pick. I don't think I feel comfortable giving any first round picks in a deal like this. So like that's the part where for me, I'm not saying your sources are wrong at all. I just have a hard time understanding the Browns angle from this, what they feel comfortable doing, what it would take to get him, and if it's actually something that they're able to pull off. Just because there's a lot of complications with it. That's what I'll say there. But if they're able to make it happen, absolutely. Right now, going into this offseason, our two biggest needs outside of quarterback, which I'd argue is our third biggest need right now, possibly could be even lower. Wide receiver, left tackle, 100%. And honestly, I could even argue right tackle up there too, because Jack Conklin just can't stay healthy. Being able to plug one of those holes with a guy that has been consistently one of the best wide receivers in the league, that's a hell of a way to plug up that hole. And it's something that allows these rookie quarterbacks to fairly be evaluated now moving forward, because we've talked about it, Derek. This team desperately craves a guy on the outside that can make some plays.
Yeah. So a couple of directions I want to take this. So I want to talk about the why first. Right? When we bring up the question, like, should the Browns do it? Okay. If your answer is yes, which my answer if you can't tell, my answer is yes. I think the Browns should trade for Garrett Wilson. Why? Why does it make sense? And honestly, Tristan, I think it makes a ton of sense. I think this is like, in terms of, if you told me tomorrow, hey, in a week the Browns are going to make a trade for Garrett Wilson, I would say, yeah, that's not surprising at all. Why? Because you currently have two rookie quarterbacks on your roster that you are in the process of evaluating / developing, right? And that affects you this season, right? And that answers the question of, should you care, right? As a fan, why should you care? You should care because if you're a casual fan, no, you really shouldn't care, right? There's nothing for you to really watch to make your Sundays great other than last week. But the Browns are in a situation where, I've said it a billion times, Tristan, but I'm going to keep pounding the table on this. You have got to, by the end of the year, you have got to have a really solid evaluation on both of these quarterbacks. A, you have all of their college film, which you had the entire draft process for both of them. B, now you're going to have these guys in your building from the draft process until this point and until the off season, right? That, it's not a long enough time to see what a guy is, but it should be long enough of a time to get a decent idea of what a guy could be. That is what I will say. And for this season, you are not going to get a fair evaluation of either one of these guys if they're throwing to D and F tier receivers. You're just not, right? Now, good quarterbacks make the receivers better, absolutely. But I want both of these guys to be put in a fair situation to succeed or fail. So for this season, it helps you greatly because you have a guy, I read the numbers to you, since he's come into the NFL has been 1,000+ yard receiver. Now, has he put up a bunch of touchdowns? No, but he's put up the yards. And the Browns have not had anything close to that this season. So you're injecting a much, 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 much needed shot of life into that offense as far as the receiver room goes. So that helps you with your quarterbacks for this season, for the immediate future. And Tristan, for the long term, if I am in a spot where I am possibly going to be drafting a rookie, I'm not saying for sure, but if I am possibly drafting a rookie quarterback, I want him to have a guy. We thought Jerry Jeudy was that guy. So far this year, he has not been playing well. I still like him. I still think he can play well, but so far he has not. If you add a guy like Garrett Wilson, I think that takes the load off of Jeudy, and all of a sudden the criticism silences a little bit. All of a sudden the pressure comes off a little bit, and maybe the mental blocks that you've seen start to disappear. And I think Jerry Jeudy can become a solid receiver again. And then you take a look at the draft. If you bring in a guy like Garrett Wilson, it gives you a little bit more flexibility in the draft. If you were planning on having to take a wide receiver, it gives you some flexibility there if you already have a guy like Garrett Wilson. And also, if you still do plan on taking a receiver, which I'm of the belief that you should, you're asking that guy to come in and at the maximum, rather. The most you would ask that rookie to do would be wide receiver 2, which you might think to yourself, hey, that sounds like a lot. Emeka Egbuka has come in. I expected him to be wide receiver 3, really good wide receiver 3, if not a solid wide receiver 2, and he's been an elite wide receiver 1 as a rookie. So it's not too much to ask. So Tristan, it makes a ton of sense in the immediate future, and it makes a ton of sense in the long-term future, because guess what? He signed, you mentioned it, the contract. He signed a 4-year deal. So essentially, what you're betting is you are saying, hey, we are going to go get a guy that we believe is going to be a 1,000-yard receiver for the next roughly 5 years, assuming everything goes well the next 5 years, because at that point he'll be 30, and receivers, you never know, injuries and all that. So to me, Tristan, I think it makes a ton of sense. You're guaranteeing young, good talent on the roster, and you haven't had a ton of success drafting them. So if you can guarantee a guy, it makes a ton of sense. But last thing I'll say, I know I've rambled, sorry. But I'm in agreement with you. I don't think you trade any of your first-round picks for this year or next year. I'm completely open to trading second or below. That's fine. That's up for debate. But Tristan, the idea that I'll propose to you, going back over to you, as much as this pains me to say and as much as it would hurt for this to happen, I think there is gain and loss, right? You lose Nick Chubb, it sucks, we're all pissed about it, but you go get Quinshon Judkins. And is he Nick Chubb? No, but guess what? He's a hell of a player. To me, I think if the Browns want to make this move happen, you're going to have to give up something. I think you call around the contenders around the NFL. I think you sell David Njoku to the highest bidder. I think you then turn around and take that pick and include that pick in a trade for Garrett Wilson. What do you get for Njoku? I don't know. I really don't know at this point. That's a great question. But Tristan, if I got a 3rd-round pick for David Njoku and I could trade my second, hypothetically, my second this year, I don't know what the draft, what all we have as far as picks, but if I can hypothetically trade a second, a third, a 4th, or whatever it would take, right? If Njoku's pick can be a valuable part in this trade, I would view that, Tristan, as a really good move, because you're essentially replacing a guy who's been really good for you, who's getting older, that you're not going to probably extend long term. When you already have the future at his position behind him, for a guy at a position of higher need, younger, more consistent, you get the point. So I know that was kind of a rant. I apologize. I tend to ramble, but I don't see any negative whatsoever in making this move. The only negative would be if you give up too much. That would be the only negative. So what do you have to add onto that, Tristan?
Yeah, so where I personally kind of fall with this, so for context as well with David Njoku, so he's got this year and next year remaining on his contract. The Browns are going to be on the hook for $6.935 million over the next 2 years if they do decide to trade him. There's also, it looks like 2 void years at the end of his deal, so we would be on the hook, which we would be regardless, for 4.6. Oh gosh, here we go. 4.642 million in 2027 and 2.358 million in 2028. But again, that's all stuff that we would have been on the hook for that regardless. It's his void year money that we use to keep his cap hit lower. So for reference, this year it would free us up 4.5 million. Next year it would free up just shy of 17.4 million in total cap space. So with David Njoku, if you're going to sell him, this is the time to do it, because it's not that his value is at an all-time high, but it wasn't too long ago when he was putting up really good production and people saw what he could do. At the same time, I don't know as though the return that you'll get, if you can get a 3rd-round pick, that's ideal. And I think you could. I don't know as though there's teams that are that hungry for a tight end. But at the same time, it's somebody who is capable of playing at a really high level. So who knows is the ultimate denominator there. In terms of trading for Garrett Wilson, from the Browns side of it, yeah, it makes a ton of sense. I completely agree with you there. Where I don't understand is the Jets' angle for this. You've got him under control for 5 more years after this year. Next year at a low cap hit, and then you get into his extension money the year after. It's not like for next year you're getting a bunch of cap relief because his cap hit was already so low. For me, if you're the New York Jets, you're doing this deal because you're going to get a haul that is going to be able to overhaul your roster, and that includes a 1st-round pick. And that's where, I don't understand why the Jets would look to do this. He's 25 years old. His prime is still ahead of him. He's got at least 5 years in him, barring injury. I don't see the New York Jets angle from this. Is I guess my personal understanding. Hopefully their GM is just dumb and wants some picks, which would be great. I don't see that, Derek. I think that if you're going to do a trade like this, it's going to have to involve a 1st-round pick and probably another mid-round pick or 2, because of the fact that there's so much control over this guy who has produced at a really high level, albeit not at the elite level that you would expect. But again, there's mitigating circumstances there. The kind of last thing I'll touch on with this deal is, I want to say it. I think it's possible that if we were to do a deal like this, I think it's possible, not that it's probable or that it should happen. I think it's possible that you could see Shedeur Sanders going the other way.
Not a chance.
I could see it, Derek. I could, because here's the thing: if they're gonna double down and invest in Kevin Stefanski, if this is his team going forward, it's clear Dylan Gabriel's his guy, and it's also clear that the quarterback situation in New York is a really disastrous situation right now. I could see it, Derek, because the thing is that we took him with the 5th round pick, and if the value that the Jets have on him at this point is higher than a 5th round pick, then it makes sense, because it's clear that, to me at least, it's clear that you have a very strong preference for Dylan. I don't know. I could see it. I could see it. It's something that Jets fans can get excited about for the rest of the season. They don't have to worry about the absolute despair of trading Garrett Wilson, because they have something else to look forward to. And it gives Shedeur a chance to start, because there's not a quarterback there that right now is deserving of starting.
So, all right. Last thing I'll say on this, because we talked about it longer than I thought we would, but the reason why I could not disagree more. In fact, I'd be willing to put everything I own on the fact that Shedeur Sanders will be on this roster whatever the official offseason date is, like the season end. I would bet everything I own or will own for the next year that he will be on the roster, strictly because of one man, Jimmy Haslam. And I hate to be that guy, but like Jimmy's, I believe it was his kids were on the sideline wearing Shedeur jerseys. Like, I mean, I hate to be that guy, but like at the end of the day, he is the owner, and Jimmy's not letting him go, and especially not without seeing him play on the field. It would be one thing if he started this year and he was just like, I don't really know, but I
just bring it up because I think from the Jets side of it, it makes sense.
No, yeah. I know, that is the thing I will say. I agree with that. From my perspective, if I'm running the Jets, I'm not doing it. However, it's a lot of ego in these type of jobs. And you get a general manager in there and they think, well, I can do more with a 3rd round pick than the previous guy could do with a 1st or 2nd. You know what I mean? So that's why I say I think if you trade Njoku, utilize that pick as the point that pushes that trade over the line is what I'm saying. Enough mid-round picks that it gets done. That's the only way that I'll be happy either way. Like, regardless of what we pay, I'll be like, hey, we got Garrett Wilson. But, it is what it is. If you're cool, let's move on.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So, real quick, we'll talk about it real fast here because we have not gotten to talk about it yet. I'll say my piece really fast here, and then I'll go over to you.
Me too.
Something happened, Tristan. Well, we were kind of, I don't want to say on hiatus because we weren't really on hiatus, but it was kind of that weird time where we didn't really get to record, if that makes sense for you guys at home. Jeez, my phone can't stay up. But anyway, Tyson Campbell trade, that's what I'm talking about. The Cleveland Browns traded... Where's it at? The Cleveland Browns traded Greg Newsome and a 6th-round pick to the Jacksonville Jaguars for Tyson Campbell and a 7th-round pick. Immediately right off the bat, well, actually first, background for those of you who do not know, Tyson Campbell is 194 pounds, 6'1", 25 years old, went to Georgia, was the 33rd pick, so one pick outside of the first round in the 2021 NFL Draft. So yeah, Tristan, my initial reaction was this makes a ton of sense financially, right? Essentially, you're trading a guy in Greg Newsome that you weren't going to extend, probably, for a guy who is under contract, I believe, for 4 years or so. Who is basically, these two are very similar players, right? Where it's kind of like, hey, high expectation, they've been a little bit disappointing, like that sort of situation. Tristan, I was very happy with the trade because Tyson Campbell, yes, he's been inconsistent. And yes, you saw that. His first game as a Brown, right? Plays really, really good all game against Pittsburgh Steelers. Comes in a short week, just got here, plays his ass off, I thought. Got beat by DK that one time, but outside of that, played his ass off. And then in this game, Tristan, he was incredible. Let's see. Yeah, so 28 coverage snaps, 2 targets, 1 interception, return for a touchdown. So that was his game this past week against the Dolphins. Yes, it was a bad weather game, so it's hard to really fairly judge that. But my thoughts, put simply, are I think it's a great move. I think it's a smart move, and I think he's a significantly better fit. I think he will be better here than he was in Jacksonville, which has kind of already been shown, in my opinion. I could not be any happier to have him on this roster for the next few years. Wish Greg the best. I was a big fan of Greg. Loved the pick. Hope he succeeds, but so far, Tristan, it looks like it's not that close. Looks like the Browns won this trade.
Yeah. First and foremost, let me start off by, saying, Greg Newsome, thank you for everything you've done for us. He's had a lot of polarizing moments, to say the least, but, he was a guy that at least gave you good effort for sure. But on the field he was pretty solid. I thought that a lot of people were a little bit extra judgmental to him when I didn't think he was necessarily deserving of it. Martin Emerson, he played out of his mind his rookie year alongside Denzel, and he was kind of that odd man out in the slot. He's more of a boundary guy, and so he was the guy that got picked on. But, I mean, rightfully so. You're not going to go pick on Denzel Ward, and when teams tried to pick on Emerson that year, he was unreal. I mean, my oh my, was he amazing that year. I think that for me, when I look at this deal, strictly player for player, it makes sense. Just because, Greg, you've already seen what you had with him. He was having a great season. He was playing really well, especially towards the very end. But at the same time, it was the last year of his deal. You would have had to decide if you were going to spend big money to extend him. And I mean, Derek, I don't know about you, but I never feel comfortable paying big money to a guy that really is only shown that he's a very good starter on the last year of his deal. So for me, it made sense to kind of cash in on him and get as big of a return as possible for him. The fact that you got Tyson Campbell back is very, very good business. So you mentioned it, Derek, with the contract side of things. This is, in terms of contract, what's the word I want to use here? Leverage and flexibility. This could end up going down as one of the best deals in recent memory, because the money that cornerbacks are getting paid now, like Greg Newsome, if he goes to free agency, I think that there's a team that might pay him like $20 million a year if he has even just a solid year, rest of the year with Jacksonville. So Tyson Campbell, with that in mind, at 25 years old, so for next year, his cap hit is going to be $4.916 million, so just shy of $5 million. The year after, $4.8 million. The year after, $18.8 million. Then there's a void year where it's a $4.6 million hit. But yeah, regardless, it's not that big of a deal. Or is he actually signed for that year too? No, he's not signed for that year. Wait, is he? He might be, actually. I apologize for the confusion. But regardless, after next season, so if it's not working out at all with Tyson Campbell and you want to get out of his deal, after next season, you can cut him and you don't have to pay any cent left. There's no dead money. So that's the benefit of it, is if it flops on its face, you know what, whatever, we cut bait. We don't have any cap penalty, and we were already going to lose Greg Newsome anyway. So at least we took a swing, and you know what, it didn't work, whatever. But Derek, like, you what you said was right. He's been playing well. I think that, you know, the game against DK, like, he had that one moment in particular, but they were targeting him a lot, and he played well. And it was always going to be them picking on him in his first game against DK Metcalf. And again, it's DK Metcalf. He's one of the best boundary corners in the NFL. You're going to lose, right? Like, Justin Jefferson absolutely mossed Denzel Ward, had multiple moments against Denzel. And that's just going to happen when you're up against really good wide receivers. They're going to make plays because that's what they do. That's why they get paid. So I'm not over analytical about that. He's played well here so far. It's clear that Jacksonville's scheme was not a fit for him. And so far, it doesn't really look like it's a great fit for Greg Newsome either. But, like, I there's no way that I look at this deal and I say that it was a terrible move by the Browns. It's all upside, no risk.
Yeah. I completely agree. So, with that being said, Tristan, it is time for what we have all been waiting for. And this will be our last segment of the day. This is the main event for those of you at home. Let's try to keep this within like 10 minutes because this easily could go forever.
This could be its own podcast, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. This will be essentially, you can look at it as the teaser, potentially, for the offseason. What are we talking about, Tristan? Today, I would like to officially, on record, make my stamp for the quarterback that I am backing. If the Browns... Now, I will say this. This is all subject to change. This is very early. If if this guy falls on his face and is terrible, I'm obviously changing my opinion. But I don't believe he will. But before I get into this at all, I want to say quickly, for those of you, the look of just horror and anticipation on Tristan's face. Oh.
All I have to say as well is this guy, we talked for 30 minutes off camera last episode, and he said, I have changed my mind on quarterbacks. I am changing my evaluation process. The three names he gave me, two of them made sense. The one, no. Does not make any sense to justify him saying that he's revolutionized his opinions on quarterbacks. But I'll let you take the stage before I say my piece. It better not be that guy. It better not. I will rip into you like you've never experienced.
All right. It's hard for me to even get through this because it's like, because I know what's on the other end of this, right? And that's what's so funny. Okay. All right, Tristan. What if I were to tell you that the list I gave you was a bunch of bullshit? And I intentionally threw you off. Tried to throw you off. Tristan, it's Carson back.
You're kidding.
You're right. I'm kidding. It's not Carson Beck.
Yeah.
It's
no.
John Mateer. I'm kidding. Okay. All right. Tristan walked off. I hope for the sake of this podcast he comes back.
I'm done.
All right.
John Mateer. Okay. I'll let you speak, but John...
All right, it's actually not John Mateer. I cannot believe that you believed that.
Thank God. No, because you teased me with it. This whole week you had the lead up as, For reference, one of the top 3 guys for him was John Mateer. Makes no sense. No sense, because he also mentioned it in the same light that this guy would be perfect for Kevin Stefanski. John Mateer is polar opposites from what Kevin Stefanski would like out of a quarterback. Polar opposites.
So I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that, because that actually is something I forgot to say off rip. So what I want people to understand is everything that I'm about to say, the context of it is how I'm ranking is I just rank the quarterbacks in the draft, like how I view them, right? Forget the Browns, just how I view them. And then I take best quarterbacks for the Browns. And I look at that list and I say, okay, where do we meet in the middle here? Who's the best quarterback? And then who's the best quarterback for the Browns? Where do we combine? That's kind of where my philosophy is going here, okay? So, all right, Tristan. Are you ready?
Yes, I am ready.
So I got to think how I want to do this. So, okay. Here's what I will say. I will make arguments for every single one of these quarterbacks, good and bad. But I will say this year is fun for us, Tristan, because this year it sucks for the Browns because it would be great to just have that guy. Like if this was the Joe Burrow year, right? For the Bengals where they suck, they get lucky and Joe Burrow's there, right? This year for us, it's a lot of unknown. And I'm still a believer that Shedeur Sanders could be the guy. Don't believe Dylan is at this point, personally. I don't think it's fair to completely write it off. But anyway, in a situation where the Browns are looking at quarterback in the draft, Tristan, what if I were to tell you that there's a quarterback potentially in this draft that was born in East Cleveland, Ohio?
Yeah, you're not talking Drew Aller. Okay.
Yeah. Born in East Cleveland, Ohio. Went to high school in Detroit, Michigan. Okay. He is 6'3", 206 pounds. Tristan, the guy that I think, I don't want to I don't want to say like I'm certain, because I don't want to make those sort of statements this early, because that's crazy to say. And by the way, he hasn't even earned that for me to say this. But what I will say, I'm getting to the point, I swear. I like a lot of these quarterbacks. That's the main point. So I will make arguments for a lot of them. But the guy, again, born in East Cleveland, went to high school in Detroit, 6'3", big quarterback, 206 pounds, according to ESPN. The guy to lead the Cleveland Browns into the future, if it's not Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel, is Dante Moore. Now, I know, I didn't even know, and you're not going to believe me, Tristan, probably, because how these things go historically, but I really genuinely didn't know there was a lot of hype around him until you had said it when we were talking about it last week. Yeah. So please, people, don't take what I'm about to say as like the hype train. This is not me getting on the hype train. This is me watching a guy and just judging him. So, Tristan, I told you my evaluations of quarterbacks have changed because of some guys who have succeeded, right, in recent years. The ultimate reason why I've gotten to this opinion where I think that he is the guy, if he comes out. First of all, he's 20 years old, Tristan. He is 20 years old. That is insanity. Like, I'm 23, and I know to most people that's like, oh, you're young. Man, there's days that I'm like, man, my life is over. Which I know that sounds like depressing, but you get the point. Anyway, back on topic. Oh, man. No, he's 20. So the way I think about it is you have a guy, again, he's got the size, he's got the build, he's young. Tristan, he's got a rocket. You watch him on tape, and you say, hey, this is a guy that's got a lot of touch, right? Almost too much touch. But he layers his throws really well, right? He layers his throws really well. But when you turn on the film, he can fucking rip it. He can rip that pill. And when you see him play, now I understand, like, he's not perfect. I want to make that clear. I'm not saying he's my guy because he's perfect. What I'm saying, Tristan, is the state of the Browns, which we are in, where Kevin Stefanski is or is not the guy, right? What I want is I want a quarterback that I believe can succeed in Kevin Stefanski's system and not in Kevin Stefanski's system. And when you watch Dan Lanning, and I'll do you one further, this is really going to drive people crazy. I'm not saying I would do it, but I'd say I'd bring him in for an interview. If the Browns decide that Dante Moore is their guy, and he comes out of the draft and he's their guy, which I would be elated, by the way. I want to say that today. I would be elated. If the Browns fire Stefanski, keep Andrew Berry, and Andrew Berry's guy is Dante Moore, I'm not saying I would hire him, but I would say it would be 100% fair. It's too early to probably hire him in the NFL. Interview Dan Lanning. Just interview him. I personally think that he is an outstanding coach, and I think in probably 3 years, he's going to be a really hot name in the NFL. But I don't think it would hurt to give him an interview now. But anyway, I know I've been rambling a lot, so I'm going to finish with this. The reason why I am very confident and why I really wanted to do this today, Tristan, because we're going to talk about this a lot. But what I want to say today, to get it on record, within 2 to 3 years, we will be talking about him as a top 10 quarterback. I'm locking it in. I don't want to say 100%, but I'm very confident. And for the Browns, they need life. They need a quarterback who you look long term, right? You don't want we're not looking for a guy for the next 4 years. We're looking for a guy for the future, which we have been for years. But if you decide to take a guy like this, you're taking him with the mindset of, we like what you are, but we believe that we can make you the best that you can be. And Tristan, for me, the question I asked last week of, like, do you want Kevin with a young quarterback? Dante Moore would be the type of quarterback I would want Kevin with. They run a lot of play action at Oregon, a lot of similar offensive schemes. And it's basically kind of what I envision the offense to be in the future with the Browns, is kind of where I see Oregon's offense. So I like it from that standpoint. And I think this is a guy that if he comes out, he's only going to get better. He hasn't played that much football. So far this year, he's at a 72.3 completion percentage, 1,686 yards, 19 touchdowns, 4 picks. He's in the Heisman race. He is in conversation for the number 1 overall pick, right? All these things. But Tristan, this is a guy that Dylan Gabriel started in front of. But I don't know if you've seen the clip, but I want everybody to look it up. The clip, there's what's his name on the Bucs? I forget his name. Tez Johnson. Tez Johnson was asked about him, and this was when Dylan Gabriel was starting. He essentially said, I'm paraphrasing, but he essentially said, when Dante Moore comes in practice, it's as if the ones are still in there when the twos are in there. And that is quite the glowing review of a backup quarterback. So I have a ton that I could say on this, but for now, I'll leave it at that. Tristan, is there anything you would like to add before we close out?
Thank God respectable take. Oh my gosh. In years past, like I said this to you, in years past, your guy would have been Lenora Sellers all day, every day. And you said you changed your process.
Yeah.
Yeah. And John Mateer, of course, was the other name.
You know who my number 2 is? I'll solidify that right now too.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Ty Simpson.
There you go.
I think Ty Simpson's the best fit for the Browns. But
yes, absolutely. And that's actually my guy is Ty Simpson. And you know this. In terms of the fit, like we've talked, like if you could pick any quarterback in the NFL right now to plug into our system and run it with Kevin Stefanski, who's the quarterback that can do that the best? It's Joe Burrow. We've agreed on that it is Joe Burrow that would step in, and that's the ideal guy. And so when I look at who's most likely to come in and have that impact, that's Ty Simpson for me. Now I will say this, I think that Dante Moore, with him being younger, and I haven't watched a ton of his tape, so I also will reserve my right to change my opinion and make him my number 1 guy. Right now, from what I've seen, he's my number 2. I reserve the right to change and make him my number 1. But everything I've seen from him so far has been great. The fact that he works in a Dan Lanning system is fantastic news, because a lot of quarterbacks in recent years out of Oregon have come into the league and have been very successful. I think it makes a ton of sense, and I would be very happy with Dante Moore. I can get behind that. For me right now, the only 2 names that I would be thrilled with if we had that first overall pick, second overall pick, the only 2 names that I would be thrilled with are Dante Moore and Ty Simpson. But again, certainly we can change our minds later. But yeah, I've got to do a bit more film review on him before I can give my final word on it. But it makes a lot of sense, and what I have seen so far, I have liked quite a bit.
Yeah, I'll say this in closing, for all the Shador people out there, half the reason why I am as big a fan as Dante Moore as I am is because of what I loved in Shador. And it's just the pure throwing mechanics. Like Dante Moore, the fact that he's 20 years old, which I cannot get over. I don't know, for those of you watching this, I don't know if it's just an age thing. Like, Tristan, I think you're a little bit older than me, correct? Just a tad.
I think so. Yeah, a little. Yep.
Just a tad. So we're both around the same age, so we both kind of get it as far as this conversation goes. But for me, I'm at the point where these kids in college, the 20, 21, 22, seeing the things that they're doing, and I'm like, man, I think a year ago, 2 years ago, if I was in their spot, and I'm like, man, it really changes your perspective. So that's why I'm saying I think Dante Moore, it would be in his best interest to go back to school. But I think he could come out this year and be the number 1 overall pick, which I'll make my mark now. I would trade up to get him if you need to. I am that strong. I am that sold on it. And I greatly look forward to talking about this long term, because I have a lot on all these guys, by the way, including John Mateer, including, all these guys. Mendoza is the one that I am fascinated about, that I'm intrigued to hear, our talking points about, because I think that's the guy a lot of people are going to link us to. But yeah.
I'll say from the film I've done so far, I'm not as impressed with him. I think that
me neither.
Simpson and Moore are at the top, and then I've got him in a tier below. But it's a respectable take, Derek. Wow. No, but yeah, well, I could definitely see it. And go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I had texted you and I said I'm so excited to talk about this guy because I think we'll agree.
Yes,
and
that was the very first thing you said. Yes.
Yeah. And I'm glad because the comparisons that I have, I'll just tell you straight up, like early on, like the new NFL, the Jaden Daniels, this year, the Jackson Dart types, the Justin Herbert types, like the comps is what I'm excited to talk about. So,
yeah.
Well, there you go, everybody. That'll give you something to look forward to as far as the long term, as far as this podcast is concerned. So with that being said, if you have watched up until this point, please do us a favor, drop a like. It's free, costs you nothing. And if you've gotten this far, it doesn't take that long to click a button. If you really would like to go the extra mile and drop a comment, I greatly appreciate it. I know we got our usual people who drop comments. A lot of people, I will say, Tristan, I don't know why I'm talking about this now, but just to acknowledge it, because I know a lot of people, you want to get your voice heard. So I'm glad that people are commenting, but we get a lot of people, Tristan, that watch us that are very theological and very thought-driven as far as their takes. And some of the depth that they'll go into is insane. Like, yeah. So the comment section, we don't get comments all the time here, but obviously we're still growing. But, yeah, it's fun sometimes to dive in there. But anyways, that's it for me. Anything from you, Tristan?
No, I'm really excited to see how this draft discussion develops, the quarterback discussion develops. It's going to be an interesting topic to talk about for the rest of the season and going into the off season. And yeah, a lot of fun storylines around the Browns right now.
Yep.
But we'll be back to talk about how my number one overall quarterback does against this Cleveland Browns defense. So
there you go. All right, everybody, go Browns. I could say that this week because we're at least a little bit happy, so it is what it is. We'll
brother.
see you in the next one. Hopefully Drake May doesn't embarrass us, which he probably will. See you in the next one, everybody. Go Browns.
Peace.